On a Wednesday morning, just like any other, the world held its breath for the dawn. Millions of alarm clocks chirped, ready to greet the familiar, gentle light of a new day. But the light never arrived. In London, in Tokyo, in Cairo, the darkness remained. It was not the darkness of a cloudy morning or a lingering night. This was a profound, absolute blackness, a void where the promise of sunrise had been utterly extinguished. People stirred in their beds, fumbled for light switches and peered through their windows, only to be met with an impenetrable curtain of black. The familiar, comforting rhythm of our planet had simply stopped. The sun, our constant, life-giving star, was gone. The initial confusion was a quiet, personal affair happening in millions of homes at once. A child asking why the birds weren't singing, a farmer in a field, staring at a star-filled sky where the sun should have been cresting the horizon. The stars themselves were the first clue that something was terribly wrong. The moon, now the only familiar object in the sky, shone brightly, but it was a borrowed, cold light. This silent global awakening was soon followed by a wave of dawning realization and panic. Imagine the scene. It is a curious fact of physics that we would not know of our star's disappearance immediately. Light, as fast as it is, still takes time to travel across the vast emptiness of space. The journey from the sun to the Earth is a long one, covering roughly 93 million miles. This cosmic voyage takes approximately 8 minutes and 20 seconds. So, for those brief blissful moments after the sun had actually vanished, our world would continue as if nothing had happened. The final rays of sunlight, the last photons to ever leave our star on their journey to us, would still be arriving. The sky would be blue, the warmth would still be on our skin. We would be living on borrowed time, completely unaware of the verdict that had already been passed on our world. During these final minutes of daylight, life would proceed with its familiar, comforting hum. People would be commuting to work, children would be heading to school, nature would be following its ancient script, the sun would be shining in a sky that, in reality, was already empty of its source. This strange 8-minute delay is a profound reminder of our place in the universe. Then, the moment would arrive, not with a bang, but with an instantaneous and terrifying silence of light. 1 second, the world is bathed in sunshine, the next it is plunged into absolute night. It would be as if a universal switch had been flipped. The blue sky would vanish, replaced instantly by the black, star-dusted canvas of deep space. The moon, Jupiter, Saturn. It would be a moment of stunning, terrifying beauty. The psychological impact of this sudden plunge into darkness would be immense. With the sun's light gone, its warmth would also begin to fade, and the plunge in temperature would be relentless and swift. The Earth begins to lose its stored heat to the freezing vacuum of space. In the first few hours, the drop might feel manageable, similar to the cooling after a normal sunset, but this would be a sunset with no sunrise to follow. Within the first day, the global average temperature would dip below freezing, to around 0 degrees Celsius. The pleasant warmth of a summer's day would become a distant, fading memory, replaced by a biting, ever-present chill. This rapid cooling would trigger dramatic and immediate changes in our planet's weather systems. The sun is the great engine of our climate, its energy driving winds, evaporating water, and creating pressure systems. Without it, this engine would seize. For a time there would be strange and massive storms, as the last pockets of warm air clash with the encroaching cold, but soon, the atmosphere would settle into a calm, frigid stillness. The sky would be clear of clouds, as any remaining water vapor would freeze and fall as snow. This great snowing would be a global phenomenon, covering the entire planet in a blanket of white. From the Sahara Desert to the Amazon rainforest, landscapes that had never known a frost would be covered in ice and snow. The oceans, with their immense thermal mass, would resist the cold for longer than the land, but their surfaces would begin to freeze, starting at the poles, and spreading towards the equator. Within a matter of weeks, vast sheets of ice would cover the seas, silencing the waves and locking the oceans in a frozen grip. The Earth would be transformed into a giant snowball, its once vibrant blue and green hues hidden beneath a uniform and desolate white. For humanity, this relentless cold would be the most immediate and life-threatening challenge. Power grids would strain and then fail under the demand for heating. Any hope of survival would depend on finding shelter and a source of heat. People would retreat underground into deep mines or geothermal vents, seeking the residual warmth radiating from the Earth's core. the surface of the planet would become an uninhabitable wasteland. The end of sunlight would mean the end of life as we know it, starting with the very foundation of our ecosystems, plants. Photosynthesis, the miraculous process by which plants convert sunlight into energy, would cease instantly. It is the engine that powers nearly all life on Earth, and it would simply be switched off. Within days, the effects would be visible everywhere. The great forests of the world would begin to wither, leaves would droop, flowers would wilt. The vibrant green of the planet would fade to a sickly brown and then to black. The very air would begin to change, as plants would no longer be producing the oxygen we breathe. This collapse at the bottom of the food chain would send a catastrophic shockwave upwards. Herbivores, the plant eaters, would be the first animals to suffer. Tiny aphid on a rose bush, mighty elephant on the savanna. Their food source would disappear almost overnight. Starvation would set in quickly and mercilessly. The world would fall silent as billions of animals, large and small, succumb to a famine from which there was no escape. For a short time, predators might thrive on the abundance of weakened and dying animals, but this feast would be short-lived. Once the herbivores were gone, the carnivores would turn on each other. Their fate was sealed. Even the life in our oceans would be devastated. Phytoplankton, the ocean's equivalent of forests, performed photosynthesis and would die off within days. Tiny zooplankton, small fish, larger fish, seals, penguins, great whales, the entire surface ecosystem would collapse. The only life that might persist would be in the deepest parts of the ocean, near hydrothermal vents, where creatures live on chemical energy from the Earth's core. These extremophiles would be the sole biological legacy of a world that was once green and full of life. While we on the surface would be contending with the immediate horrors of darkness and cold, a far grander and more terrifying event would be unfolding in the heavens. The sun does not just give us light and heat, it holds us in its powerful gravitational embrace. The Earth, along with all the other planets, is constantly falling towards the sun, but our tremendous sideways speed keeps us from falling in. Imagine swinging a ball on a string around your head. The string is the sun's gravity, and the ball is the Earth. If you suddenly let go of the string, the ball doesn't stop. It flies off in a straight line. This is precisely what would happen to our planet. Freed from the sun's gravitational anchor, the Earth would become a rogue world. It would cease its gentle, looping journey and instead shoot off into the blackness of interstellar space in a perfectly straight line. We would become an untethered wanderer, a cosmic orphan cast out from the only home we have ever known. We, along with all the other planets, would begin to drift apart, each flying off on its own solitary tangent into the void. The familiar constellations of our solar system, the bright spark of Venus, the red dot of Mars, the majestic presence of Jupiter, would slowly recede. Our moon would remain with us, its orbit bound by Earth's gravity, a faithful companion on our hopeless voyage. But our solar system would be dismantled forever, its planets scattered like seeds thrown into the infinite darkness of the Milky Way. We would be hurtling through space at a staggering speed of 67,000 miles per hour. But space is so incomprehensibly vast that the journey would be long and uneventful for millennia. There would be a remote chance of a cataclysmic collision with another rogue planet or asteroid, but the odds would be slim. More likely, our Earth would simply travel on, a dark frozen sphere carrying the remnants of a world that once teemed with life, a silent testament to the star it had lost. As weeks turn into months on our runaway planet, the last vestiges of the world we knew would disappear. Decaying human structures half buried in ice, abandoned city under snow. After a year without the sun, the global average temperature would have fallen to a devastating -100 degrees Celsius. The very air we breathe would begin to change. Nitrogen and oxygen would eventually liquefy and then freeze, falling to the surface as a strange, exotic snow. The sky, once a familiar blanket of blue or black, would effectively cease to exist, leaving only the hard vacuum of space above the frozen ground. The planet itself would become a geologically inert ball of ice and rock. The oceans, which took months to freeze over completely, would now be solid ice, miles deep. The ice would extend from the surface right down to the seabed, locking the entire hydrosphere in a state of suspended animation. There would be no more waves. There would be no more currents. There would be no more tides, as our companion moon would be pulling on a solid, unyielding surface. The great geological forces driven by surface temperature changes, erosion by wind, water, ice, would cease. The Earth would become a static, unchanging museum of a planet, its frozen landscapes preserved perfectly under a layer of frozen atmosphere. Beneath the miles of surface ice, however, a faint warmth would persist. The core of our planet is a giant ball of molten iron, a remnant of the heat from Earth's formation. While this geothermal energy is tiny compared to what we receive from the sun, it would be enough to keep the deepest parts of the ocean from freezing solid. It is possible that in these dark, slightly warmer depths, some forms of microbial life could cling to existence. These extremophiles would be the sole biological legacy of a world that was once green and full of life. Viewed from space, the Earth would be almost unrecognizable, no longer the vibrant blue marble. It would be a dark, dull sphere, a ghost planet, silently coasting through the galactic night. For humanity, the battle for survival would be a desperate race against the encroaching cold and darkness. The initial chaos would give way to a grim, determined struggle. The only hope would lie deep underground. Communities would need to be established in the deepest mines or near geothermal hotspots, places where Earth's internal heat could provide sanctuary, tiny pockets of warmth and light. Power would come from geothermal energy and for a time from remaining nuclear reactors. Life underground would be a shadow of what it once was. Food would be the greatest challenge. With no sunlight, we'd rely on advanced hydroponics and aeroponics under artificial lights. Fungi could be cultivated in darkness. Subterranean aquaculture might farm fish in geothermally heated tanks. The diet would be monotonous, resources scarce. Every calorie, every drop of water, every watt of energy would be meticulously managed. Society rebuilt around survival. The psychological toll would be immense. Generations born and dying without a blue sky, knowledge of the sun and green earth preserved in stories and old footage. Art, culture, human connection, crucial for sanity. Human connection would be crucial for survival. But how long could this last? Ultimately, even these last embers would likely flicker and die. Resources are finite. Life support systems would fail, power systems would falter, food systems would break down. Maybe a few generations, maybe a few centuries if we're lucky. But eventually the last generator would fail, the last light would go out, the last human heart would fall silent. The planet would drift on, a frozen tombstone in the cosmos, a silent testament to the star that gave us life.